So today I'm doing a little bit of a different video because I think it needs to be said. We were so hyper-focused on one disease that we forgot everybody else's disease out there. And I'm going to share with you where we had to bury my dad. This is the cemetery where we buried my father. And I'm bringing this up because I feel like there's so many people that I've known in the last year. Started with my best friend. She's the first person I knew. But my Facebook post started filling up within the last year of people's loved ones dying, and I started a thread. So right here is where my dad died. And it's very possible that if we weren't so hyper-focused on just one disease, COVID-19, that perhaps my dad could still be alive today. I have to face Father's Day without my dad. I don't get to celebrate my dad. We just had my son's birthday. It's the first one he didn't get to go to, obviously because he's not here. I'm at a beautiful cemetery, and I have a feeling that some of the people buried in this cemetery didn't have to be here, but because we were so hyper-focused on one virus, everything else just was forgotten about by the medical. Telemed was not a solution to the problem. Telemed did not solve the problem at all. Telemed was a horrible way to do medicine. Telemed might have been a way to get a sinus infection, okay? A sinus infection, fine. But you have real people who need a real physical exam, who needs to be seen by a real doctor, and that telemed was shit, basically. Because look at all these people. Look, since my dad died, there's been a lot of funerals that have been in this cemetery. The week my friend died, my other friend's father died a few days prior to my own. My neighbor had a heart attack a couple months ago when he died. My pastor's wife just died suddenly out of nowhere, very unexpected, a couple months ago. I just know a lot of people who have lost a loved one, and I really blame, and I hope someone will be held responsible in the medical community. Now, I'm not necessarily bashing on doctors. I do highly respect them. They're who I need when I don't feel well, and I don't feel when I'm sick, and you know, it's who I was depending on to save my dad when he was dying, or we didn't know he was dying at the time. You know, he was having strokes, and we didn't know that there was like this virus or a fungus or a bacteria eating away at his heart. We did not know that. We were hoping and depending on doctors to figure this out, but he kept having stroke after stroke and a heart attack, and it was all because of this undetected thing that was attacking his heart valve. Perhaps if we wouldn't have been so hyper-focused on one virus, maybe my dad would still be alive today. Maybe your loved one would still be alive today. In the comments below, I would like you to share with me someone that you love that might have died in the last year. And I really want this to go viral. I hope this video will go viral because someone needs to be held accountable. That the people way at the top in the hospitals that were not allowing them to have visitors, to have their loved ones next to them when they're sick, and they were shut out from the entire world. When you're sick, you need an advocate. You cannot advocate for yourself. You are sick. Your mental capacity is not there. Your energy level is not there. You need someone to be your advocate for you. The nurses are full of patients. You know what? I think they have about 10. But what if they were taking one of their rounds, and in that moment that they're not in your room, your loved one has an episode and needs medical attention right there and then, because that's a life-saving measure, but the nurse doesn't know better because she's making her rounds in another room. See, this is where the advocate would have came in and said, hey, I have a code going on. I need a nurse. I need a doctor. But was there that? No, that was not in existence because you weren't allowed to be with your loved one in the hospital. So my dad gets to die because stuff like that. I was lucky that my mom got to be by his side most of the time. But with my best friend, that wasn't the case. No one got to be by her side. No one got to be her advocate, and she's not the only one. There were many others that were just like that. But there was closing times at the hospital, and my mom had to leave at a certain time. And when we didn't know my dad was going to die, but he wasn't doing so good, my mom had to go home, knowing my dad wasn't doing so great. She had to go home because she couldn't stay overnight with him like they did in the past. When you had a loved one who was critically sick and you used to be able to stay overnight, she couldn't do that. Because of the COVID restrictions, I wasn't allowed to talk to my dad one last time, to be next to my best friend. And someone needs to be held responsible because, for one, this was a made-up virus in a lab. This made-up virus in a lab destroyed families because the medical community neglected to see people face to face, because the medical community wouldn't let loved ones be next to you when you were in the hospital. And so I want this to go viral, and I want you to put your loved one in the comments. And I want to say I'm sorry that you lost someone you loved. I really am, because it's absolutely devastating. You won't have that person anymore in your life. And I'm sorry that that's your situation. Like, I'm sorry it's mine. I hope we will learn a huge lesson from all the lives lost this year, that it doesn't have to ever be like that again. Just because we have the internet doesn't mean it's a solution to all of our problems. We still need face-to-face contact. We learned that with the education system. And I think we're learning that in the medical community as well. Take care.